Hey guys, Omar here for another Fuji X-t20 video. In these videos, I've been sharing my experience with the Fuji X-t20 as an owner, as someone coming over from DSLRs, having both systems, sharing my experience. But what's been super awesome is what you're bringing back. So all the comments that keep coming in are teaching me, and I'm trying to give back. So that's what this video is about today. It's about you, and it's helping me. And what I do is I take it and give it back to you. So it's like the circle of life. The last video I mentioned that I was frustrated on the street. If there's action or something that I see is about to come, I felt fiddling around really quickly with the Fuji was really tough and I was missing shots. But someone, hey, start looking at custom functions on the camera. And so that's what I'm going to show you today, how to set up custom functions so it's ready for different situations. What's great about that is you don't have to fiddle through all the little different options to get what you're using very frequently. Now on my Canon, custom functions are a little different. On the Canon, custom functions, you can customize a shutter speed and an aperture. That way when you switch the custom dial, it automatically will go to, let's say, a slower shutter speed, high ISO for maybe a dark room. The strange thing about the Fuji custom settings is you can't set a shutter speed and an aperture. And that was kind of my main concern because I needed high shutter speeds. If I see something coming, I want it to be the shutter speed to be over 200 or 500 to freeze action. So the workaround for that is to use a custom function where the ISO setting on that custom function is a super high ISO. If you have a super high ISO and you don't care too much about grain or what's going on there, where speed is more important, I set up a custom function where the high ISO will give me a high shutter speed and at least I can grab the action that's coming towards me. So custom function 2 for me is when I absolutely positively need the shutter speed to be as high as possible to grab action. Copyright Omar Gonzalez 2017. All right, let's show you how to set up a custom setting. So if you go to the quick menu, if you turn your rear dial, you'll see a bunch of C's, and each one could be programmed to be a setting that you want. Now, the way I set up my camera for street photography is I set it in aperture priority mode. There is no time if you're trying to run and gun or shoot really fast to flip around the dials. For me anyway, you may be super awesome. I set my aperture to whatever I want. That one I control on the ring. And then I set my shutter dial to be on A. That way it's on shutter priority. The camera will pick a shutter speed for me. But remember, I was finding that it was picking shutter speeds that were like 60th of a second or 30th. I can't talk! So my first custom function is my standard. So here's what my standard is like. If I hit the Q button on back of the camera, here's my C1. The first thing is I have my ISO be a max of 800. So this is sort of based on if I'm walking around the street and it's a regular old bright day. I have standard film simulation. I have white balance on auto because I've found the camera has done a good job with that. Most of my stuff is zeroed out. I shoot RAW and fine JPEG. And my photometry is just on the regular old evaluative. And all the other stuff is all regular. Okay, so my standard custom 1 is what I walk around with the most. Now, my custom 2 is the one that I've designated to be something's coming. Something's coming fast down the street. Holy crap, this is gonna be an awesome shot. I don't care what the ISO is gonna do. I need a high shutter speed, okay? So what I've set that up to be, if you notice, the ISO is ridiculously fast. I'll show you what that looks like. So over here, you'll notice I have it on Auto 3, and I've designated this Auto 3 to be the minimum 800. Now, the minimum is 800, which means if it's very bright out, the shutter speed's gonna go way high, hopefully to 2000, 4000, so it could really freeze something. And ISO 800 on this camera is like, so it doesn't matter, okay? You're not gonna get a lot of noise. For lower light situations, I've set my highest ISO to be 12,800, okay? And if you notice, I want my minimum shutter speed to be 1 over 200, 1 over 500th, I've set it to. Now note, if the camera can't get a good exposure, it'll ignore your 1/500. It'll shoot at 1/100, but it will still give you the fastest shutter speed it can, close to your minimum. So I kind of like that option as like a last resort. I set it to be 1/500 because I'm assuming that something kind of quick is coming. So that is my setting for custom setting number 2. Note, what's great about the custom settings is you have 3 auto ISOs for each of your custom settings. 3 times 7. So you have 21 possible ISO settings that you can do. For my number 3, I've set that up to be my acros. And I like acros with a little bit of punchiness. So I've set my shadows to be +1 and my highlights to be +1, okay? I kind of like that look for me, sharpness +1. But play around with each thing. White balance doesn't matter. So this is kind of my acros walking around, and I've set the max ISO to be 800 on that. My custom 4 has become my classic chrome playing around with, okay? And my custom 5 right now, that's nothing. Okay, let's set up our custom 5 together so you can see how to set it up. So let's say we're foodies. We love going to restaurants. And when we sit down at restaurants, they're pretty dark and you don't really need shutter speeds that are that high. Okay, so we want to set up our custom 5 to be our, let's say, restaurant food custom setting. I'm just totally making this up. Hold down your Q menu till you get this thing. Scroll down to 5, which is going to be our restaurant one, and go to the right. And now you can sort of pick everything you want. So for the restaurant, I want my ISO to be auto. And again, I don't care about too much. I went the wrong way. So sorry, guys. 1600. Let's pretend we want 3200. And I don't care that my shutter speed is so slow. I have IS, image stabilization, on my lens, and I'm taking pictures of food that's not moving around too much. So I'm going to hit OK on auto 3. Okay. I'm going to hit my back button to go back to this. So now if you notice, I have auto 3 as my ISO. Film simulation for food, I want to go with, let's say, a standard. And I want my white balance to be tungsten because most restaurants are very tungsten-y. Highlight tone, fine. Now the restaurants are kind of dark, so the shadows might be too crunchy. So I want to just put -1 on that, just to get a little bit more detail out of the food. You need your food to be like a little more colorful, and that's great. Then you hit your back button and you'll see custom 5 set OK. Once you hit OK, you're set. Now when you go to your quick menu, you go to custom 5. Let's say we're shooting at 1 on the street. We got our normal settings. We sit down at the restaurant. I'm going to go to 5. Bam, baby. It's already ready to go with my tungsten light. It's got my shadow thing, it's got my ISO, so I'm totally ready to, shoot some food photography, and my custom setting is set. Okay, so that's how you can set your camera for different looks quickly. Now the difference between my shutter speeds on custom 2, which is my crazy biker coming custom setting, and my shutter speed for restaurant are controlled by that auto ISO. So the one for the bicycle that's coming has a super crazy auto ISO to get my shutter speed up. And the restaurant one, since I shoot mostly aperture priority, my restaurant one has like a lower shutter speed because I know even if I miss the shot, I'm sitting there at the restaurant, I can even change my shutter dial and play around there. So really my custom 2 has become my run and gun, something's really happening fast. I don't really care about ISO grain too much. Copyright, Omar Gonzalez, 2017. Okay, now I do shoot RAW and JPEG. If you're shooting only JPEG, which is awesome on the Fuji, you should use all your custom settings and set them all up to be different. That's my recommendation. Since I shoot RAW and JPEG, if I shoot something in acros, black and white, let's say for example, since I'm shooting RAW, I could bring the color back from those images since I'm shooting both RAW and JPEG. So the custom settings, I'm not so worried about changing them that much, except for that fast action one. But if you're shooting mostly just JPEG, The custom functions are great to give you what you need. So I hope that helped you guys set your camera up what works for you. And if you have suggestions, keep them coming. This was a fantastic comment that helped us out. Subscribe, give a thumbs up, and big hugs, guys. Come on, let's bring it in, man. Come on, here we go. Oh yeah, love ya.